our Pleno session. So here we would like to announce that for the distinguished ladies and gentlemen who have important activities outside, so you may leave the room. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this first session will present 3 keynote speakers. The first one is Professor Oki Karna Rajasa, MSc PhD, Director of Research and Community Services, the Indonesian Ministry of Research, Technology and Higher Education. The next one is Professor Kadambot Siddiq, the Director of Institute of Agriculture, the University of Western Australia. And the next one is Professor Dr. Insinyur Iwayan Windia SU from Faculty of Agriculture, Udayana University. And this session will be chaired by Dr. Andes Yan Ramona, MAPP SC PhD. The time is yours.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Assistant Governors of Bali Province and other distinguished guests will now leave the ballroom. Thank you very much for your coming and for the opening of our today's conference.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. MC. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great honor for me to be the chairman of this first session of the plenary of this seminar. In this session, we will have 3 honorable presenters. That is Professor Oki Karna Rajasa, and the second one is the Professor Kadambot Siddiq. And the third one is Professor Iwayan Windia. In order to run this session, I would like to invite the 3 keynote speakers to sit beside me here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this session will be divided into 2 sections, namely the presentation to be delivered by the 3 presenters first, and then in the last 30 minutes we will have a discussion session. And we would like to invite the audience to ask your question or anything that was not clear delivered by the presenters. And before we start with this first presentation to be given by Professor Oki Karna Rajasa, I would like to briefly read the curriculum vitae of this honorable keynote speakers. As it was mentioned before that Professor Oki is the editor, is the Director of Research and Community Service, and he is a marine microbiologist at the University of Diponegoro, Semarang, Central Java. And Professor Oki finished his PhD at the University of Tokyo and received a PhD in aquatic ocean. And of course, he has a very long list of publication, international and national level. And currently, Professor Rajasa serves as a Director of Central Laboratory of Research and Service di Ponorogo University. That is a brief curriculum vitae of our first presenters, and now I would like to welcome Professor Oki to present his paper, and the time is now yours.
Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Honorable the Rector of Udayana University, keynote speaker, invited speaker, as well as the participants of the ICoSTH 2018. My picture is not there. So that means I'm not invited actually. But I'm here on behalf of my boss, the Director General for Strengthening Research and Development. I hope this is fine with all of you. So please allow me to briefly speak on the Global Partnership for Advancing Innovation on Science and Technology, especially on the challenges for Indonesia on climate change. I will start with the current competitiveness of Indonesia. In 2016, our rank was 41 out of 148 countries. And in 2017, there is a big improvement. We were sitting at the 36th rank out of 148 countries. There are 12 pillars that determine the competitiveness of particular country in terms of a global competitiveness index. And the pillars number 12, which is innovation, we have several challenges that need to be accommodated by Indonesia. For example, the capacity for innovation, and then the quality of scientific research institution, spending of private sector for research and development, as well as the lack of scientists and engineers in Indonesia. Last but not least is about the numbers of international patents produced by Indonesia. We are sitting at the rank of 97 out of 148. So in terms of innovation, there is a big challenge for Indonesia. Is the strategic objective and goals of the Ministry of Research, Technology and Higher Education. So basically we want to enhance the relevancy, quality and quality of qualified human resources with higher education background, as well as to empower science, technology and innovation for improving the quality or the competitiveness of Indonesia in the global arena. In terms of human resources, we have also a big challenge on that. For example, out of 270,000 Indonesian lecturers, only 15% of them are holding PhD. Why this happen? Because you need only to have a master degree to be able to become Indonesian lecturer. This is very much different compared to the international standard that you have to be a PhD holder in order to be a lecturer. And we have only 1,017 scientists per 1 million population. And this is very much low compared to the South Korea, which is about 8,000 scientists per million population. And then also we have problem with the ratio of candidates for science and technology. Becoming scientist is not a favorite career for most Indonesians. We need to do more incentive in order to attract young generation to become scientists. The challenge number 2 is about research budget, or we call it the gross expenditure on science, research and development. Indonesia spend only 0.25% per GDP, and this is the lowest spending in terms of ASEAN countries, and also for the neighboring countries. For example, South Korea, they spend 4.2% per GDP. And approximately 25 trillion rupiah are allocated for this year budget. 80% come from the government. Only 60% come from the private sectors. This is exactly in the opposite situation in neighboring ASEAN country, in which more than 80% are contributed by private sectors. We believe that there are less research collaboration in Indonesian university, and now we just introduce what we call the activity budget. The activity-based budget has further complicated the environment or the landscape of Indonesian research ecosystem. There are two main groups that are responsible for advancing science and technology in Indonesia. Number one is Indonesian University. We have only 260 million population, but we have approximately 4,500 universities. That's too many. Even in China, they have 1.4 billion population, they have only less than 3,000 universities. So the Minister of Research, Technology and Higher Education now is targeting to reduce the number of Indonesian universities up to 1,000. Last year, we closed about 78 universities, and we expect more universities to voluntarily close or merge the university in order to meet the high national standard for higher education. And out of 4,500 universities, there are 3,250 universities are under the coordination of Ministry of Research, Technology and Higher Education. The second group is what we call the non-ministerial research agency or research institution. There are 6 of them, and each cover approximately 15,000 scientists. So in total, we have 270,000 lecturers plus 15,000 scientists at 6 non-ministerial research institutions. Is the National Research Program as part of what we call Indonesia Research Master Plan between 2017 to 2045. There are 10 research focus, and most of the research focus are very much related to the current conference issue on climate change. So basically, the topics that covers in this conference nicely fit the National Research Program between 2017 and 2019. And for the next 5 years, there will be a new National Research Program. Now the question is how we maintain the quality of research activities or Indonesian university in terms of research and development. For that reason, we have conducted what we call clustering of Indonesian research, Indonesian university based on research and development. It is conducted every 3 years, and the last one was in 2016, and the next one will be in 2019. So basically, we use 4 different criteria in order to cluster Indonesian university. Number 1 is the resources, could be human and non-human resources. The second one is the management of research, and number 3 is output of research, which is about 50% of the total assessment. Last but not least is the revenue generating, about 5%. From 3,250 Indonesian universities, only 25 are belonging to the platinum cluster, or what we call Mandiri. And the rest of 3,000 universities are sitting in the lowest group. This is a big challenge. Not only the numbers, but also the distribution. Because Indonesia have 17,508 islands, and only about 8,000 are inhabited, and the remaining nobody there. Connectivity is the main issue in terms of connecting university across Indonesia. A good thing is that for 2019, there will be an increase in the research budget from the government. So this year, I managed about 110 million US dollar research budget. And next year there will be approximately 140 million US dollar. Of course, it's very low compared to US. But for Indonesia, there's slowly, at least there is a big portion are dedicated for research activities. For that reason, we have 3 different research funding schemes. Number 1 is what we call nationally competitive scheme to accommodate the National Priorities Plan. So we cover basic, applied, and development research. The second one is what we call decentralized grant scheme that will allow the Indonesian university, based on their cluster position, to manage the funding we have allocated to them. And it is also support basic, applied, and development research. And all of the 2 nationally, both and decentralized, all support the national research priorities area that I mentioned before. The new program we launched this year is what we call top-down research grant or assignment research grant. This is the first time after Indonesian independence in 73 years ago. So we have university consortium research, and then we have world-class research. So we have made a list of 200 Indonesian scientists out of 270,000 scientists that having record in publication in Tier 1 or Quartile 1 internationally peer-reviewed journal. Last but not least is strategic policy research. This is to support what we call evidence-based policy making. So we would like that government or even the ministry, when they will produce policy, they will take into account the contribution of scientific or academia before they launch the new policy. Now let's move a bit to what we are dealing with today's conference. As you already understand that we have sustainable development goals, and number 13 is about climate change. And number 17 is about partnership. So basically, the topics of today's conference are very much related to the goal of sustainable development. we are in Indonesia as the tropical countries as that's having ring of fire. We have a lot of volcanic, we experience a lot of impact of the climate change. It could impact on industry, agriculture, transportation, forestry, population, and urbanization. So there is an increase of exposure of Indonesia to the climate change. It is therefore, we need to do the prevention and mitigation in dealing with the climate change. If you look at the occurrence of natural disasters by continent and top countries, Asia is sitting as the highest numbers of occurrence of natural disaster. And Indonesia, not so very high, but still we are sitting, listing as the potential country with the risk of climate change. If we compare the occurrence of by type, disaster type between 2017 compared to 2007 and 2016, the numbers is very threatening. As you can see here, in 2017 alone, the numbers is very significant compared with 2007 to 2016. There is an urgent need that we have to improve our capacity in order to deal with the climate change. Here's the human impact total death, shared by deaths in percent by continent. Still, Asia sitting as the highest, 58% of the total deaths come from the Asian country. And this is the top 10 countries by number of reported events in 2016. You can see here that Indonesia also experienced several events that really gave impact on Indonesia. It is believed that climate change and other environmental issues are interlinked. Climate change will have so many impact, either in biodiversity, Indonesia as the mega diversity country, and then forestry and others aspects, including waters, also in the marine environment. That's a big challenge that needs to be addressed. This is an example, climate change and impact in Bali, in Sanur Beach, Nusa Dua Beach, and Kuta Beach, reported in 2016. When we look back into the SDGs, number 17, this is specifically mentioned about partnership for the goals. It covers science and technology cooperation and diffusion of environmentally sound technology. That's mean innovation. We need more and more innovation, and then to use of enabling ICT. This is especially important when we are talking about Industrial Revolution 4.0. The Ministry of Research, Technology and Higher Education has already set some program to accommodate what we call disruptive technology and higher education. I very much believe that global partnership in combating global challenge is a must. Since this has become a global phenomenon, so countries around the globe need to enhance the scientific collaboration, the global partnership, together to face the impact of climate change. And I will specifically state here that research and innovation should be strengthened, especially in Indonesia, not only in terms of human resources, also the research budget allocated. For that reason, in 2017, I will specifically channel part of the 2019 research grant for disaster management as well as climate change related to the health, food security, and maritime. This is a very simple innovation that has been developed in Demak, North Java Sea to deal with the increased impact of climate change. Of course, not only such simple technology we are needed at the moment, but also we need some high impact, high technology in order to predict or even to provide solution to the problem of the climate change. So this is the mangrove restoration as well as the permeable dams developed in the North Java Sea to accommodate the problem of climate change. We are at the ministry also has recognized the importance of international scientific collaboration. We are believing that scientific collaboration in the global arena will help to improve the research capacity, to improve networking and link, to improve our capability to deal with the global challenges such as climate change, and also to support the global innovation as well as to provide high research quality. It is a big problem for Indonesia at the moment that most of Indonesian university equipment was purchased last time 25 years ago. So we need more access to use the state-of-the-art equipment to deal especially with climate change. Therefore, international scientific collaboration play important role. Indonesia offer the opportunity as natural laboratory. It attracts so many scientists around the globe in order to learn, to study about different phenomena that occur in Indonesia, from tsunami, earthquake, high level sea rise, seawater temperature rise, as well as other social and humanities. I would like to stress that in 2018, about 30% of the research budget provided by ministry are allocated for socio-humanity, art, education, and culture. So at least 30% of the annual budget are dedicated for socio-humanity, art, culture, and education. And this is also irrelevant with the possible use of Indonesian resources in terms of diversity, that we are not only talking about the diversity of plants or animals or microbes, but also the culture as well as the languages. We have about 350 different languages, and we have approximately 600 different tribes. This is a good challenge as well. How the local language, the local knowledge are very much related to the measure in terms of dealing with the climate change. This will also attract so many anthropologists as well as social scientists, that climate change also can be seen from social linguistic perspective. And this is less has been conducted in terms of international research collaboration. That is why I offer you to conduct the joint research collaboration. And for that reason, I have located special funding, what we call international scientific collaboration and publication. It can be in terms of bilateral between Indonesia and particular countries, also in terms of multilateral collaboration. So please make use this conference to discuss about possible scientific collaboration with Indonesia. And please, Indonesian scientists, do not hesitate to submit your proposal to initiate your international scientific collaboration in the near future. And this is the hotspot of research destination conducted by foreign partners and Indonesian scientists from the west to the eastern part. So you can see every dot represent different research topics area. It can be from social scientists, oceanography, or marine biology, etc. Now, this is the list of the 10 biggest international partners having collaboration with Indonesia. Number 1 is United States of America, and then Japan, and followed by European countries. But the numbers of collaboration from the ASEAN countries less compared to the United States and the European country. And by field of study, number 1 is ecology, number 2 biology, primatology, and anthropology, number 5, geology, last but not least about marine biology. So I can see that joint collaboration in climate change and disaster management have less attention compared to the other field of study. Now I challenge you to get more involvement in Indonesian research by conducting joint research in the area of climate change as well as disaster management. This is my last slide. And this is the top 10 institution hosting foreign researchers. Number 1 is Indonesian Research Institute, followed by Bogor Agricultural Universities, and then Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Ministry of Energy and Mineral, Gajah Mada University, and University of Indonesia, etc. So I expect more Indonesian university from the central and eastern part of Indonesia to be more active to hosting more scientific partner from abroad. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi Santi Santi.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Oki, for the excellent presentations. And I would like to slightly conclude what has been delivered just now. And Professor Oki has Test, test. As we already heard from Professor Oki that his presentation was divided into two sections. In the first section, he talked about the scheme of research available and in his department, and he also challenged every scientist in these rooms to read and submit proposal research in order to overcome the climate change in particular. Because as we have heard just now that the climate change has a great impact to the global countries, especially in Asia. This is it was mentioned just now that in Asia is found the highest impact of the climate change. And Professor Oki also mentioned that at least about 30% of the budget need to be allocated to humanity. I think that's all I can include from this presentation. And now we can move to the second presentation to be given by Professor Kadambot Siddiq. I apologize if I wrongly pronounce your name. Thank you. And Professor Siddiq has about 30 years experience in agricultural research, and he is from the University of Western Australia. And currently he is working on mostly in agricultural sectors, and he has been visiting many countries all over the world, including Indonesia at this time. And I think he is a great scientist, and in the next 30 minutes I will be giving Professor Siddiq to present his paper, and the time is now yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me, and also we are very keen to enhance the collaboration between University of Udayana and the University of Western Australia. So it's good the previous speaker has done a great job in introducing the climate change and how that affects Indonesia and also some of the R&D activities going on. So I'll give you some innovations in adaptation to climate change. You heard from the previous speaker, those both mitigation and adaptation are very important. So the outline of my presentation is I'll just give some global trends. What is adaptation? And I'll come back to my own state, the state of Western Australia, how we are dealing with the dryland, drought in particular. We look at the past and future climate change, particularly rainfall, temperature and carbon dioxide. These are the three drivers. Then we look at the adaptation and recent collaboration, one example with China, where we have been working for the last 10 to 12 years and draw some conclusions. Before doing that, I just would like to introduce you where my university is situated. Of course, Asta studied there for her master's and PhD there. It's a wonderful location, and it is in the state of Western Australia, very large state. Perth is the capital. We have only 1.9 million people in Perth. The whole state has got only 2.6 million. It's a comprehensive university. It's just more than 100 years old. And we had a Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2005. We heard from Professor Oki with regard to the quality. I just don't want to dwell too much. We follow the academic ranking of world universities, which is one of the top ranking criteria. We have been sitting around between 87 to 91 in the whole area, not just in agriculture. But if you draw down, you can see in life and agriculture science, we have been sitting around 24. Last year onwards, they separated life science from agriculture, and we are sitting number 14 and number 1 in Australia. I think this is quite a significant achievement for a non-agricultural university. We don't have agricultural universities in Australia. And another ranking, what we call National Taiwan University ranking, sitting around 25. Plant and Animal Science, number 15. So the international collaboration, the quality framework are all so important. It's not only in terms of the citations, but also translating that work to the practical application to the farmers and the community. So I can list maybe 10 global challenges, but I have listed only 5 challenges: feeding, increasing the world population; meet projected energy demand, although the petrol price has gone down, now it's going up again, so energy is so important for any development, including agriculture; manage greenhouse gas; adapt to climate change variability. You must have heard the IPCC just produced its report. In the report, there are 2 points. Point number 1 is good. That is, we have already been taking mitigation strategies to reduce the carbon dioxide and methane emission. That is effective. The bad news is that the 2 threshold, the 2-degree rise, is pretty disastrous. Even with 1.5 degrees Celsius rise, we're going to see significant threats into the various climate-related parameters. So we cannot be complacent. We have to do more work. The preserve natural ecosystem and biodiversity is so important. And then finally, the maintain global security. If people are hungry, they become angry, and they revolt against the government. So it's so important, the food and nutritional security, to be addressed. You heard from the previous speaker the importance of the SDG, particularly 1 and 2 and 3, and he also pointed out the number 16 SDG goals. So the students in the background, what is adaptation? It's very simple. It's defined as the adjustments made in response to stress. It can be any stress. It can be when you are facing the examination. How do you adapt to that? In this context, adaptation should be based on process to minimize the potential negative impacts of variable climate. So a successful adaptation enhances a system's ability, not with one silo mentality. We need to look at the uncertain future and then enhance that strategy to all system adaptation. So more and more integrated science and technology is very important than the silo mentality. We cannot take this discount that the population is a very important strategy. We need to be really realistic about it, because it is that one driving. So if you look at the population, currently it is about 7.6 billion, and no doubt that by 2050 we will be reaching around 9.7 to 10 billion. That is a realistic estimate. Now, what does the population do to the planet Earth? So we can see the soil erosion has been happening. Water, 1.1 billion hectares, and the wind erosion is causing 0.55 billion hectares of soil erosion. Soil is so fundamental for agricultural and food production system. The next one is, I'm just illustrating the salinity cost, largely what we call the secondary salinity due to irrigation, and 20% of all irrigated land in the world is already under secondary salinization. The third one is related to the fertilizers and others moving into the water system, whether it is the phosphate or the nitrogen, and that is causing to enormous amount of algal blooms, causing to the marine ecosystem damage and so on. So this is, again, we can minimize or we can avoid in certain cases. Now I'm going to take into the urbanization. So you heard from the previous speakers, we are losing significant amount of agricultural lands, and that is true, whether it is in Asia, Indonesia, China, or India. Because of the population growth, lots and lots of land is being taken away from agriculture to the industry and dwellings. The next one is what we call the biodiversity, and there's a significant loss. If you look at that, in the 9,000 species are lost at the moment. So previously about 5 species per year, so the significant loss of biodiversity. Of course, you are familiar with the tropical forest, not only here in this country, but also in Brazil and the South American countries, and a significant amount is lost. So something like a country like Sri Lanka, that much size is lost per year. Water is the lifeblood of agriculture and human activity, and we have been really depleting water resources. And 2000, there were 2.3 billion people in the water scarce, and that's gone to 3.5 billion. Number of countries in the world have no drinking water. For example, if you take Pakistan, and Pakistan is have a huge challenge in terms of drinking water, let alone. The final one is the terrestrial carbon pool. And this is something which we need to address. We can lock up a lot of carbon by having the right type of agriculture or the right type of forestry, and carbon sequestration is so important. It will become even more important. The IPCC report, the recent report suggests that. Now, you know, we just cannot ignore the human population, as I mentioned there. I won't go into the details, but we are facing close to 9.7 to 10 billion by 2050. So if you look at that, over the last 10,000 years, the number of humans has increased about 1,000-fold from 2 to 20 million, and today it is 7.6 billion. So that is something really happening. You cannot take that away. So my theory is that impact is a function of the population, the size of the population, affluence. When you have more money, you start driving more cars or more kind of things. And then, of course, the technology. So technology can be both negative and positive, but I see the positive side. Today, there are problems. If we embrace some of the right technology, we can address some of the climate change aspects. So we need to look at the holistic approach, not just about adaptation or mitigation. We need to look at the population strategy in relation to city. I was told that by 2035, the Jakarta will be one of the largest mega cities in the world, something of the order of about 36 million people. Now I'm going to draw you to the world's dry land. This is about 41.3% of the global terrestrial area, different type of aridity, and about 2.5 billion people live in dry lands. Dry land means they significantly depend upon their water, agriculture, on rainfall. So one of the problems I see with the climate change and adaptation is the global greenhouse gas emission trajectories, then global climate model projections. We can downscale, then we can assess the impact and vulnerability assessment, then adaptive response. One of the problems is that these are all based on models, not the actual data, and then downscaling to a regional area like Bali will become very important, but it is becoming difficult based on some of the data available. But with a new technology, a lot of computational power, a lot of information coming from atmospheric physics and so on, we should be able to downscale that data and then predict what is going to happen so that people or the government can develop systems to adapt. So this is actually an uncertainty cascade. People will say, I don't need to worry about it because it's going to happen 100 years. But we need to do now because in 100 years' time, things will be too late. This is based on the previous model, and you can see that all the areas where it is red, the climate change will affect and reduce crop yield, provided if we are do nothing by 2050. So we are not going to sit and do nothing. We're going to develop technologies to both mitigation and adaptation strategies. So this is the projected changes in agricultural productivity from climate change at 2050. You can see Australia is going to be affected very much. That is 17% of reduction in the current production if we do nothing. There are many other countries affecting. I haven't got the data for Indonesia here. Coming back to Australia, Australia has got a different type of climate. On the top we have got the equatorial climate, tropical, subtropical, then large chunk is desert, nothing grows there, grasslands, and we got the temperate. So it is affecting various kinds of climate. We are producing various kinds of agricultural products, but also we have different challenges. So if you look at basically, this is the golden area, what we call the crop growing area of Western Australia, a lot of animal production. Then we got some of the tropical irrigated area as well. largely an export-oriented country. I won't go into the details. So that is the beef cattle, the crops, the wool and cotton, sheep, milk and milk products, wine, horticulture, sugar and seafood. These are about currently sitting around $55 to $60 billion worth. Of course, we have a very good trade relationship with Indonesia in terms of number of products. So what's going to happen in Australia? We have also done quite a lot of climate models and projections. And if you look at the 2030 scenario based on 1990, it's warming up, the rainfall is declining, particularly this part, and also the evaporation is increasing. But this bit, the tropical bit, the rainfall is increasing. So this is very real, and we are now evidence that Australia is facing serious climate change occurrences. But I just wanted to focus the southwest of Western Australia. This is where most of our agriculture is located, what we call low rainfall, medium rainfall, and high rainfall. A number of enterprises going on, and about 3,000 hectares is the average size of the farm, and some of the large farms are as high as 100,000 hectares. And if you look at the climate change, we have seen now 20 to 30% reduction in rainfall here, about 10%, and about 8 to 10%. But in this area, we are seeing increase in rainfall. So if you look at the Western Australia is getting wetter. I just mentioned that we have dried, but if you look at the whole state, we are seeing more summer rainfall, but less winter rainfall. But if you look at this corner, where there is agriculture practiced, we are seeing a clear lack of wet years and decrease in rainfall. And in 2010, we saw one of the driest ever we had seen. So as a result, the state has got now 2 desalination plants and significantly affecting, and we are looking at different strategies for adaptation. So for example, if you look at all the dams flow into Perth area, we used to be about 350 gigaliters of water, annual flow depending upon the rainfall. Then from 1975 onwards, that has gone down something like 80, and then we have been seeing stepwise reduction in the flow of water into the dams. This is a clear indication of the climate change. So as a result, the state has got, Perth has got 2 desalination plants in order to adapt and provide water for the people. It's not only the rainfall. If you look at that, the southwest is getting hotter. So this is colder. This means no change. We are seeing significant hot days per year. This is again a driver, an indication of climate change. We saw that rainfall is declining. Now we are seeing increase in temperature and also increase in evaporation. And we've done a lot of modeling, and in the modeling we looked at the grain yield of wheat and the days about 34 degrees at flowering, and this is to maturity, and there is clear indication that if you have a couple of hours of hot, dry wind during flowering time of a crop, you get reduction in yield and quality. If you look at the state's grain production, so you can see all these years were extremely dry due to climate change, and then when we get good rainfall, we produce up to 14 to 15 million tons of grain. And now you heard from the news that the New South Wales and other parts of Australia is experiencing one of the worst droughts in decades. So what we have heard so far is the lower average autumn and winter rainfall, increased seasonal variability, increased risk of prolonged drought within the season, high average temperatures and evaporation. I haven't shown, but we are also facing more intense tropical cyclones. And this is clearly some of the indicators of climate change happening. So the big question, whether it is in Australia or Indonesia, some of the questions the agriculture and farmers and the scientists should ask. So I keep rainfall, temperature, light and CO2 are some of the key drivers. So what is the impact of climate change on agriculture? Whether it is in Australia or India, we need to ask that hard question. What are the risks and opportunities? Is it going to be really big? What are the risks? Will farmers in the industry will adapt naturally? What is needed to adaptation? Do they have the technology at the moment? Should we develop new technology for them? And finally, what is the impact of adaptation? You may adapt, but it makes no difference at all. So why should we invest in that area? Maybe invest more in your coastal system, where you plant more mangroves and things, protect the community, as opposed to the spending more money in agriculture. So unless you have answers to this question, I'm not going to invest any money into R&D, because this is so important, because otherwise it becomes as a sort of simple academic exercise. So at UWA, I just summarizing some of the activities we're doing: climate-ready crops, smart genetics and physiology, conservation agriculture. I'll show a few slides on that. Greenhouse gas, we are now monitoring what is the greenhouse gas emitted from our system. We can't rely on European data because Australia is different. European data has a different type of drivers. Soil fertility, biology, and carbon sequestration, these are all integrated. We need to look at what is going below the ground. Biotechnological tools, biophysical and economic modeling, because this is important. We just don't know what's going to happen in 2100 or 2050. So you need to have a predictive model based on some biophysical and socio-economic parameters. We have a large farm, what we call UWA Farm, Future Farm 2050, where we're trying some of the technologies otherwise farmers won't try, because university can afford to lose some money, whereas the farmers will be always looking cash flow within the next year and so on. Partnership with the farming community and the industry is absolutely important, because no point in doing some academic research if that research is not having any impact. Undergraduate and postgraduate program. When I was a student, I never learned about this thing. I did study meteorology and etc. But whole thing is changing. So who is the people going to make the difference? It is the young generation, next scientist, etc. So we need to bring that in the curriculum so that they understand all aspects of climate change and climate adaptation and mitigation. Of course, international collaboration, because climate change is not just about Australia, it is the global climate change. So we are so hungry for partnership with some high quality researchers from all over the world, and that can make a big difference, big impact. Now I'm going to show some examples of wheat. Australia produces about 25 to 30 million tons of wheat. It's not a large, but it is big in terms of export. It's one of the 4 countries in the world exporting wheat globally, and in fact to Indonesia, about 4.5 million tons of wheat exported from Australia, largely from Western Australia. And average yield is only 2 tons because it's all depending upon rainfall, no irrigation. So what's happening in that part? You get the things are planted in April, May, and then you get rainfall, low temperature, high humidity, and low evaporation. Then the plant is flowering, the high temperature, low humidity, high evaporation, and no rainfall. And that's what I call terminal drought or terminal death, and that causes yield reduction and quality. So we understand our system well, and now we're working on developing varieties and strategies to how we adapt with the increased effect of climate change, particularly during reproductive period. So if you look at the Western Australian wheat industry since 1800, when the white man came and cleared the land, there was no wheat, nothing in Australia, and you can see, oh, they got some good yield, then yield declined because lack of suitable varieties or micronutrients. There comes the research and development. We were going about 5.6 kilograms per hectare per year. Then around 1980 onwards, we started really moving forwards. Remember, the climate was changing, rainfall was declining. But yet, we are improving productivity based on new technologies. But if you look at the last 10 years, we are seeing this variation is significant, and that's a worry, because the rainfall one year to the other year varies and the temperature goes up. So I'm just going to show some theoretical framework here. This is in-season rainfall or water use, and this is the yield. There's a good relationship, scientific basis, based on transpiration, the amount of dry matter produced, and the dry matter partitioned into the grain. And the slope of that line provides the rate at which we can improve the yield, and this is where the amount of rainfall lost through soil evaporation. And this is the district average. You can see that the farmers are not getting the true potential. Then I can create a new potential by reducing the soil evaporation, but also changing the slope. So in summary, even if the climate is changing, we can lift the yield by having the right technology, but also if you produce a climate-smart wheat crop with the same amount of rainfall, I can get the potential up. So it's not gloom and doom. That's what science and technology can deliver. I'll just show you a piece of work one of my PhD students done. We have developed this, what we call the real chambers within the soil. So we can manipulate CO2, temperature, and water. So we have scenarios, 380 ppm CO2, ambient temperature, plus 2 degrees, plus 4 degrees, plus 6 degrees, and then we double the CO2, just look at that. On the top of that, we have, when the plants were flowering, we cut off the water and no water at all. So this kind of study not normally done because it's so difficult. Either people grow well-watered, well-nutrient plants and then enrich CO2 and say CO2 is increasing yield. Everyone knows that. What is the effect of interaction between high CO2, high temperature, and water stress? That's what the PhD student was doing. And then we use 2 wheat varieties. One is vigorous, one is less vigorous, so the soil evaporation occurs. They flower at the same time. And you can see now one is irrigated and one is dry, etc. I'll show you one result. If you look at the grain yield here, let's take a Jan's variety, well-watered, with ambient temperature and elevated CO2, you get a high yield. As the temperature increases, around up to 2 degrees, you're getting high yield. So what we have been able to show is that even if the temperature increases up to 1.5 degrees, we can get high yield in our environment, provided we get the right variety, because the temperature has been cold, but it is now 1.5 degrees. But if the temperature continues to increase, the effect of CO2 is lost. So that's the... Now if you look at the soil, a lot of people ignore the soil. If you look at the current production of wheat, let's say 4.8 billion, and then decreases due to some of the subsoil constrained acid soils, low permeability, reducing yield. So you need to look at what is going on in the soil, because climate change is just not about the animals and the plant, what it does it to the soil biology and also soil structure, soil chemistry, so one need to address that. And we're spending a lot of time on the root studies, because people who are in these audiences breeding crops, they always look at the top and say, look, I'm going to breed a high-yielding variety. But where is that variety gets its nutrients and water? So we're looking at a better root system architecture based on some innovative phenotyping platform, but also linking with some modeling approaches, and then finally tying up with the molecular markers, so we can have a different root system architecture for different environments for adaptation to climate change. Some agronomy we call zero tillage. Zero tillage means no cultivation to the land. And this is very much popular in the United States, Canada, Argentina, and Australia. And many of our farmers have not plowed their land for the last 14 to 16 years. So that is affecting a lot of carbon sequestration in the soil. It reduces the loss of topsoil by wind erosion, and also it improves the structure of the soil, including the quality of the soil through better microbes. So this farmer, for example, this is his canola, which is a brassica crop. This was his previous years of barley crop. He hasn't plowed his land for the last 14 years. So his mantra is make sure that every amount of water coming from the rain is infiltrated into the soil, because it's a dry land. So we need a strategy like that. So you can see that this is his previous crop, satellite guide GPS technology. He's planting very close and he has got small furrows. So any amount of small rain coming, captured by the straw, then gets into the furrow, and also he can utilize any fertilizer which this crop has not taken for the current crop. So these are all GPS satellite guided technology. And you can see his machine, which is planting precisely, and he has been able to get some very high water use efficiency compared with the neighboring crop who has not been practicing no-till, zero-till cultivation. When you look at the data from all over the world, this is the year under the system, no-till system, and the relative yield, no change. We are seeing that it takes the system to adapt. So you're not expecting immediate benefit of no-till system even in our environment. You need to give the system to stabilize and go, especially in the low rainfall areas. The other one is that we are measuring the greenhouse gas emission from the cropping system. We need to know the carbon footprint for grain production in Western Australia. And what we have found is that the nitrous oxide emission and carbon dioxide emission from the paddock or the field is very small. Most of this emission occurs during transportation, the urea preparation, production of urea, etc. So you just can't blame the farmer saying that the farmer is emitting a lot of greenhouse gas. And you can clearly see that it's coming from other areas where you need to do things, whether locally produced or use a different transportation system. If you look at Australia in the 1995, you will see that the area with the crop residue, that means most of the farmers were cultivating and not much left. But if you look at in the 2009-10 from the satellite, you can see something like 65 to 70% of the farmland is already have some sort of coverage. That means they are not plowing the land. They're leaving the residue intact. Now, last few slides of my presentation, I'm just going to show you some collaboration we have been doing for the last 12 years with Langzhou University in the Gansu province, which is one of the driest. And one of the features of the Gansu province, the lowest plateau, gets a lot of silt driven from the Gobi Desert, and the silt is increasing. Very arid, extremely cold, minus 25, minus 30 degrees in winter. So they don't grow any crop. They grow crop only in summer, but they must protect that moisture. So they use a technology called plastic mulch technology. So they have onshore oil program. So they develop plastic based on that. And we have developed this technology to reduce soil evaporation. So if you look at this, this is the machines which lay out the plastic. In this case, they are planting corn seeds and ridge furrow system, and the plastic is all covered, and you can see how the crop is growing beautifully. So this crop was planted at the same time, corn maize, but you can see no plastic mulch, no ridge furrow, and here the yield is about 7 to 11 tons per hectare. This yield is only 2 to 3.5 tons per hectare, and significant increase in water use efficiency. And how does this happen? So they allow the water, which is already snow melt in the ground, reduces the soil evaporation, but also, you remember, from winter, the temperatures are so low in the soil, these act as a blanket. So a C4 plant like corn need a warm temperature, they get up. So if you look at the adaptation, so you got the climate change, you got the benefit from adaptation. So you can achieve by incremental adaptation, the varieties, planting time, spacing, stubble, water, nutrient, canopy management, but then system is leveling. So what we need is system adaptation. So climate change ready crops or animals, climate sensitive precision agriculture, diversification and risk management. Some crops you cannot grow because the climate has changed too fast. So you need to look at new crops. For example, in Australia, some parts, the vineyards may change because some become stable grapes rather than the wine-making grapes because the temperature is too high in certain parts. But what I call transformational adaptation, beyond which we cannot adapt. So you need to look at different land use, different industry, different distribution. So for example, certain areas we may not have agriculture, will then so-called natural ecosystem and ecosystem tourism. People may be interested in coming and seeing the mangroves in Bali, but maybe the rice area may decline in those areas. Some of these things has been all put together in a book, but a lot of other publications are there. The Conservation Agriculture by Springer, but also the Innovations in Dryland Agriculture is also available for you to have a look at it. Finally, my conclusions are The adaptation to climate change is depending upon research development. I should add extension as well, R, D, and E. So we must understand the past changes, past adaptation. The farmers have been adapting. And how did they improve the system by quantifying the change? We need better downscaling because global models are good, they are global. How can we have a better model for closer to Bali or Sumatra? That's the kind of modeling we should be investing so that we get a very informed data to make the decision. Specific breeding, you want to breed a new type of cow for Bali. What will be the strategy? They need probably more heat adaptation. So these are the type of things we need to look at. And then we will also see more pests and diseases coming, different type of pests and diseases coming. How can we capitalize the carbon dioxide fertilization effect within the short term, let's say for the next 20 years, before the temperature is going to get higher, because CO2 does help do more photosynthesis and better productivity. And the farmers and everyone need better forecast, not like one day before and say you're going to get a tsunami, vacate the place. It's impossible. Can we get a better prediction well ahead of time so the government can prepare the people, population to adapt, so the farmers can adapt, etc. And the thresholds and critical events are very important. More importantly, communicate with the farmers because they are the people every day adapting, not like me and you sitting in the laboratory or in the university. They know better than us. And so involve them earlier on. Traditionally what we do, we develop a technology and take to the farmers. That's fine. But we don't know what's going to happen in 2050 realistically. But the farmers will be able to give us some guidance and researchable questions so that we can address that. Finally, this is my last slide. I mean, some people say, oh, climate is not going to change. Let's not worry about it. I don't believe that is a good strategy. A lot of the things we have said are going to be good because if you reduce the CO2 from the motor cars and things, it is good for your lungs. If you reduce certain things, if you have more optimum fertilizer use, less fertilizer gets into the river waters. So these are all compatible. Productivity, profitability, and environmental solutions can go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much for excellent presentation, Professor Siddiq. Yeah, in his presentation, he noted several important points. The first one is about the increment of population globally, increased very quickly, and then it reached several billions in the next few years. And this, of course, need to be provided with food. And again, he talked about the climate change, which has a bad side effect. It reduces the productivity of agriculture. And the key answer to cope with this bad side effect is the technology in which we can create more plants, which is resistance to extreme conditions like drought, high temperature, etc. I think that's all that I can conclude from his presentation. And now we come to the last presentation in this plenary, the first plenary session today, to be given by Professor Windia. He will talk about Subak. Before we start with, I would like to briefly read his curriculum vitae. Professor Windia is the head of Subak Research Center at the University of Udayana, and he has been working on this sector for a long time, and until recently he still worked in these sectors, and he has received award from UNESCO. In the next 30 minutes, I would like to welcome Professor Windia, and now the time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't worry, this is the last speaker. After we heard about the climate change to see through global perspective from Professor Siddiq and also from national perspective from Professor Now I am going to share about how the local community in Bali, like Subah as a local wisdom, to anticipate, to overcome the change agricultural activity. First, thank you very much for Professor Rai that inviting me here to share about Subah system and related with the topic of this meeting, may I share about the role of Subah system in Bali in climate change era. How Subah in Bali to overcome the climate change. What Subah is? Subah is a group of farmers that manage the irrigation water in one side of rice field with natural boundaries. So all of rice field in Bali is managing by Subah. We have more than 1,000 Subah in Bali that managing the all of rice field in Bali, around 75,000 hectare. Yes. You see, this is the green line. This is the border of the Subah. Here is irrigation channel to catch the all of water will flow out from the outlet of the Subah. The existence of Subah in Bali because the sloping topography of Bali Island, hilly topography of Bali Island. In the top of Bali Island, from the west to the east, we have mountain, hill, forest, and 4 lakes as a source of water for Balinese in Bali Island. The water flow from the lakes to the river and then to be dammed in the river, and then water flow to primary canal, secondary canal, and tertiary canal, and to be used by farmer in one Subah site. This is the figure like this. Yes, we have mountain in the top of Bali Island, and then lakes. From the lake, the water flow to the river, and then to be dammed here, and then water flow to primary canal. Sometimes we have a tunnel also, and then the water flow directly to the Subah site. Right? The Subah not allow the water flow directly from Subah to the other Subah in the downstream. The all of water in the Subah flow first to the channel, and then the Subah in the downstream get water from those irrigation channel. Not allowed. So every Subah in Bali has source of water. Maybe directly from the lake, directly from the river, or from water division building, or from the channel that get water from the other Subah in the upstream. Like this, yes. The Subah get water directly from the river. 3 Subah here get water from the division building here. If some Subah get water from one source like this, they Subah make like federation or association, Subah association. What for? To managing the water from the source of water from this deficient building. This is the evidence that, yes, to Subah get water from one source of water from water deficient building. If the water is limited because the climate change, in rainy season, not rainfall, and opposite, and otherwise, and then if water is limited, and they grow rice, and then they can rotate. They can rotate. After 1 month in the Subah, the water will flow to the Subah. This is the wisdom, the policy of Subah and Bali, how to overcome, how to anticipate the limited water, if any, climate change. How farmer in Subah area distribute the water. Also, in farmer level, every Subah members have a plot of rice bed like this, have one inlet. Every Subah member. We have E, B, C here. And E has one inlet, B one inlet, and one inlet also. Subah not allow the water flow directly from one member to the other member. Like this, very easy. Just broken the border and then water flow from A to C. But Subah not allow. Every Subah member must have one inlet, one channel. Maybe not to be efficient, but very effective to avoid conflict in the field. And also very effective for borrowing system, water borrowing system in the field. This is the benefit of one inlet and also one outlet. The foreigner researcher said, Subah implement one inlet and one outlet system. Not allow directly flow of water from one member to the other member. So imagine how many hectares we must use the rice field to build the channel. Too many. But the philosophy of Subah not to be how to get efficiency, but how to get effectivity, to avoid conflict, to get water, distribute the water as justice as possible. This is the goal of Subah as a local wisdom, as a traditional organization in the field, in the farmer level. So if water is limited, C or B can ask farmer A, yes, to borrow the water. They can stop the inlet here and then the all water will flow to the downstream. That is the mechanism in the farmer level in the field, how the farmer anticipate to overcome the climate change. If water is limited, they can implement borrowing system of water in the field. Also borrowing water among Subah in one river, because every Subah has source of water, inlet. This is a system in the field. Every Subak member has one inlet. They can borrow the water from this inlet if needed. No interest, no time when they will return the water. Just need it, just ask the neighbor. Like this. This is one inlet for this rice field. The farmer built two long channel like this to irrigate the next rice field. If they get efficiency, they can just broken this border and then water flow. But the Subak in the field not allow the water flow directly from one Subak member to the other Subak members. The benefit is like that. They can borrow the water if needed, if the water is limited. This is the system how the farmer borrow the water. Just stop with stone, with soil, and then the all water will flow to this inlet. This is the system in Subak to anticipate, to overcome the climate change, the limited water in the field. The all decision in Subak organization is made based on the consensus. They make a meeting before transplanting season, before land preparation system, to discuss, to make decision about water borrowing system, about contribution to the Subak in the next season, about the punishment, about the ritual activities in Subak temple. Don't forget, every Subak not just have source of water, also have source of spiritual activities, temple. That is make this. That is how Subak very strong. From 1,000 years ago, Subak still exists because the strength of Subak, because of they must get the same source of water, and also they must manage one temple together. So because of material and because of spiritual. And all of decision based on consensus, not like in the West. 50% plus one, win. No, in Subak is consensus. Also, don't forget temple, spiritual activities. Subak believe that God will help the agricultural activities in the field. That's we call in Bali Paryangan system. Harmony with God. Consensus is harmony with other, pawongan. And then how to mix rice field, not destroy the land. The Subak make rice field based on the contour of the hill, of the land. That is the implementation of how Subak harmony with nature. Don't forget. Yes. all do. No fat, poor, black skin, they always offering. 15 offering in one season in the field. Please imagine. Black, no fat, poor, but every season they offering 15 ceremonies to protect the culture, to maintain the culture. So, this is how Subak anticipate and overcome the water in the field. If water limited, rainy season, no rainfall. But farmers have been grow paddy, rice in the field. Subak can implementing water borrowing system among Subak in one river or among Subak member in one Subak. Planting rotation. In one Subak, they can grow first in the upstream and then to the downstream in one Subak. Also, we have mentioned before about how the rotation between Subak in one river if they get one source of water. And also they implement planting diversification. If water is limited and then they grow also second crop even in rainy season because water is limited. Like this, we can see this is rice, they grow rice, and then because the water is limited, not enough water, they grow second crop here. Sweet potato, sometimes cassava, usually flour. Sometimes the price of flour is more than the price of paddy. If any ceremony in Bali. Yes. If water overflow, rainy season, dry season, but rainy is very much. The technique is just the Subak will open the outlet. The head of Subak will ask the Subak member, please open the outlet. The water will flow to the channel and then to the river and then to the beach because the gravitation area. Because we have sloping topography in Bali. The water will flow from the upstream to the river and then to the beach. So this is the evidence that Subak as the socio-cultural institution and also as a local wisdom like Subak City in Bali has an important role to overcome the impact of climate change. Not just by technical, but also institution, traditional, local wisdom have an important role to overcome the climate change. Suggestion? Yes. Yes, Subak is very strong internally, but very weak to protect themselves from the external intervention, from government, from capitalist investor, from drinking water company, something like that. So, we need the Subak activities, not just socio and cultural like 1,000 years ago. But we need the Subak in the long term also implement the economical and technological activities. For example, cooperative based on Subak. And also how to add the value added of the farmer in Subak area. We need Subak not just as a socio-cultural activities, but also as economical and technological activities also in the Subak. So I invite colleagues from Faculty of Tourism or from Economic, how to support, how to improve. This is the local wisdom also in the field. The farmer built the temporary house for resting after they work in the field. How to improve this temporary house, support, and we invite tourism in the Subak area, and then the tourists stay here to see the Subak activities, farmer activities, and then they must pay. That's very important. To strengthen the Subak area with economical activities based on tourism, based on whatever, depend on our colleague in Udayana Universities. How to improve the strength of Subak in Bali in order to protect our culture in this globalization. Thank you very much.
And some point I can conclude here that just now Professor Windia talked about the organization of farmers that manage the distribution of water among them. This is a unique tradition that has been applied for generations in Bali in particular. And as we know that Indonesia has two seasons, the dry season and the rainy season. And it was a very nice management there that we can see. During the dry season where the water shortage happened, the people or the farmers there can rotate can apply the crop rotation or borrowing system of water and also plantation diversification. And during the rainy season where the water is overflow, the Subak can manage the distribution of water directly to the other side-by-side Subak, and also the overflow can be drained to the sea directly. That's all the presentation today in the first plenary session. And now I would like to open the discussion session for about 30 minutes. And I would like to invite the audience to ask questions or give input to the presentation today. And for the first section, I would like to invite 3 audience. Okay. Pak Denny, the first one. Ibu Profesor Mas, yeah, the second one. And one more. Yeah, Bapak. Please state your name before you ask your question and to which presenter your question to be addressed. Thank you. The committee can help. Can the committee help to distribute the mics to the? Okay, thank you.
The first from Western of Australia said that in adaptation for anticipating climate change, we need to develop maybe technology, maybe by developing technology in farming, also maybe it is possible to develop new species can strength to adapt the climate change. In accordance to your knowledge, to what extent the importance of species supporter, we know that some species in the field can support some plant that adapt to such drought. Example, FAM or mycorrhizae. To what extent does the importance of the species? And the second question maybe to the Professor Oki. To what extent does the anticipating of research ministry in developing research program on such climate change? And the third, is it possible to Professor Windia? No doubt that Subak is very important for Bali particularly. I think we can imply it overall in Indonesia. And according to your knowledge, what has been done? Because in Bali, the tourism development increase and increase. It takes so many paddy field sites replaced by new villa or whatever, or hotel. And in my opinion, the Subak getting decrease and decrease. I mean, it doesn't mean that a farmer doesn't want to plant rice anymore, but in fact, no channel for water anymore because developing of villa and hotel. I think, so I need your idea. I mean, what can we do to overcome such condition? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Pak Denny. For his question is for the three presenters, and I think the answer will be given directly. First, to be given to Professor Siddiq.
Thank you for that question. Basically, your question is asking, can we develop the existing varieties into more tolerance to drought or waterlogging? The second aspect is the interaction with things like mycorrhizae. I think yes, the answer is yes. We have globally looking at a number of drought-tolerant wheat and maize and soybean and has been developed. And if you look at, for example, Australia, 200 years ago, there was no wheat. It was all introduced, and from there the breeding program started. And we have been adapting Australian wheat to one of the most drought human inhabited continent in the world. This is the driest human inhabited in the continent in the world. So yes, we can. Those has been through stepwise normal breeding and so on. But now we have the powerful tool of genomics era. We can precisely pinpoint where the trait is located. We can bring many traits. I'm not even talking about GM technology. That's also possible. But even with the conventional breeding, based on the cell biology and the molecular technology, we can further enhance. The association between soil biology, the roots, what I call rhizose sheath, the area surrounding the root, yes, those plants which have got mycorrhizal association, they can extract more nutrients, phosphorus and other things, but also there can be the channel for getting the limited water into the system. So, possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. As I mentioned in my presentation about the 10 research priorities area outlined in the National Research Plan between 2017 to 2045. Many of these research focus area are accommodating the issue of climate change as well as disaster management. And for each research area, for example, in the area of food security, yes, we have accommodated the issue of climate change, as well as in the focus research area of maritime we have also accommodated the issue of climate change. For each research priority area, it will consist of at least 4 different research themes and followed by at least 4 different research topics. So basically, issue on the climate change is very well accommodated in our nationally competitive research funding scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Benny. Thank you for your attention to our Subak in Bali. Yes, that's right. Every year, almost 1,000 hectare rice field decrease in Bali because of hotel, of villa, whatever. Sometimes, if the hotel will in the upstream, and then sometimes the hotel will stop the water, the channel in the upstream, and then no water to the downstream. And then they buy again the rice field in the downstream. This is the technique of capitalists in Bali to, to buy the rice field and then the Subak will destroy. We afraid also, if the Subak in Bali is destroyed, our culture will also not exist anymore. Because culture in Bali based on agricultural activities also. You see so many ritual activities in the field in one season. This is how the Balinese maintain their culture in the Subak system. So that is why we need the Subak activities, not just in socio and cultural only, but we suggest the government how to build economical activities like farmer cooperative based on Subak. We need farmer cooperative not based on village, based on Subak. Every Subak must have one cooperative because they need same interest. They need fertilizer together, pesticide together, water together, temple together. That's why we need cooperative based on Subak in Bali. And also technological activities, industries, how to mix a cake, something like that, or tea from the red rice production, something like that. That's why we invite our colleague in Udayana, how to help, support the Subak with economical and technological activities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answers by the 3 presenters. And now
Yep,
I will
thank you. I personally support Safe Subak for Safe Bali. Thank you.
Okay, the next question will come from Ibu Mas, Professor Mas.
I should stand because I'm so short. Thank you. Thank you for the chance to ask questions. So I have 3 questions for each of the. I have 3 questions for each of the speakers. For the first one, I would like to ask Professor Oki, related to you mentioned about Indonesian university hosting the collaboration research on climate change. I would like to ask, which Indonesian university has been handling the collaboration research for climate change? I would like to know about that. And the second one is for Professor Siddiq from Western Australia. I've been graduated from South Australian University, so it's close to Western Australia. and the climate is similar, I think, for Mediterranean type of climates. Yeah, I would like to ask, because you mentioned so many things about handling or tackling the problem of dryland agriculture in Western Australia, so nearly similar with the South Australian climates. I would like to ask, what's the most successful strategies so far to anticipate of the impact of climate change on agriculture in Western Australia? Thank you. And Prof. Windia, I have one question. I always ask you a question. You said that if we have a deficit of water, the Subak will organize the water. But my question, how if there is no rainfall, there is no irrigation, there is no water, so what the farmers can do? They will, as you said, they will change the plant pattern or rotation and so on. But is there any data or is there any record data for the problems or impacts of climate change so far in Bali for the rice production? So how much the impact of the climate change? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Mas. The first question will be answered by Professor Oki. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Mas. In 2018, we have funded approximately 18,000 research projects in total, covering 10 research priorities area. And I don't remember exactly at the moment the distribution of the research related to the climate change. But as I mentioned before, it can be a touch in the research of food security, could be in a socio-humanity, could be on maritime, etc., etc. So, yes, a lot of research related to climate change has already conducted by Indonesian lecturers. In addition, we have at least now 3 different bilateral research collaboration between Indonesia, Australia, and then Indonesia, France, and last but not least is UK Newton Fund respectively, so 3. And also we just launched a new program on EU ASEAN joint funding scheme that also covering different activities on climate change. And also we have e-Asia, which a joint project between Japan and ASEAN countries. It also accommodate issue on climate change as well. So basically, there are 2 opportunities, either domestically or international collaboration. But I guarantee, since, for example, climate change is very much related to the disaster management. Disaster management is one of the 10 research priorities area. That means a special allocated budget for research on disaster management has already confirmed for 2019. And as I mentioned before, I'm very pleased to announce that there is an increase in the research budget allocation next year. So there will be around 140 million US dollar in total. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Yes, you are right. The Southern Australia, that's south of Western Australia, South Australia, they all Mediterranean type climate, meaning winter dominant rainfall, no rainfall in summer. So the crop depend upon the rainfall they receive. In some years, they don't get the rain, so the farmers are in big trouble. So what are the drivers? If you look at broadly, you can divide into 2 aspects. One is the variety, the new development of the new varieties. The second one is what I call the production technology or the agronomic practices. So if you ask me what is the proportion of the advancement or the yield coming from, roughly 50% come from the varietal development, new varieties, the genetics. The other 50% comes from the agronomic or production practices. Some cases as high as 75%. So short duration, drought tolerant varieties to adapt it to the harsh climates with a deeper root system and better somata and so on. I won't go into the details. The agronomic aspects include no-tillage or the conservation agriculture, precision planting, precise application of fertilizers, and so on. So both agronomy and genetics go hand in hand. More importantly, when you get new varieties, you need to fine-tune the agronomy practice for that. So if the farmer gets a very early break, let's say April break, they need to go with a long season variety. If the farmer gets a medium break, she or he will go with a medium duration variety. If they get late breaks, they may not plant certain crops. They will plant wheat and barley only, because wheat and barley are more resilient when compared with canola or grain legumes. So, thank you.
Thank you, my colleague, Professor Mas Riago, my colleague, student until now. Thank you very much for your question. And if no water anymore, the main task of the Subak is how to manage the irrigation water. And then if no water anymore, the name of Subak will change from Subak to Subak Abian. Subak Abian is the site of rice field, depend just from the rainfall. They grow only second crop. Yes. That is the reason if no water anymore. The Subak will destroy also, and our culture also destroy. Subak is the group of farmers maintaining our culture in Bali. Yes. About the impact of climate change in the production, until now, we have no data about that, but we believe no climate change impact in the rice field area. Why? Because the Subak can borrowing water between Subak in one river or among Subak in one river, and also borrowing water among the Subak member in one Subak site. Borrowing water, no interest, no return. When? That is the local wisdom of our farmer, our Subak in Bali. And also, if the water is limited, rotation. After 2 weeks in one Subak, and water will flow to the downstream, to land preparation water. So, just change 2 weeks the planting season from the upstream until to downstream. So, and then also diversification. As I mentioned before, that if water is limited, sometimes they grow flower mostly in one part of the rice field. And then the price of flower is very high. And then the income of flower is higher than rice, especially before ceremony. You know, in Bali is very ceremony, holiday. They need flower, banana, something like that. Sugarcane, something like that. That's why until now we believe no impact yet the climate change to the production to the farmer. I think my colleague Prof. Agung has or have the data like this. We will change our knowledge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Windia and the other two presenters. And now we come to the next audience who want to ask question. Bapak, ya. Tolong ini Pak semua, Bapak ini. No, later this one first.
Okay.
Ini.
Finally, thank you. Good afternoon for the speaker today. My name is Nomi. I'm from Faculty of Social and Politics. In our discussion today, it's about agriculture, which I want to apologize in advance that I don't have any knowledge about agriculture, but I really want to ask this question. So we know that in Bali, that subak is become the cultural heritage by UNESCO, and as Balinese, we really love to hold on into that title. But it's in its common sense, as long as there is water, there is subak. But subak will not exist anymore if there is no water. And since there's a lot of people who abuse water in Bali for their own private use, the water is become less and less. And when the water become less, then you try to adapt technology. Like in Western, they try to introduce the vertical agriculture, or they use the glass house and things like that. So my question actually, and it can be answered by anyone, to what extent actually you can adopt technology without have to interfere with traditional norm, with traditional rule that we already have in Bali. And if you can write a scenario, or if you can give a best solution for what technology that you can adapt for water management without have to make subak extinct. Thank you.
Okay, I think this question is directed to Professor Windia. The time is yours.
Thank you, Miss Iswari. Still very young, I think you still miss it. Yes, the task of Subak also how to adapt the technology also. Maybe our colleague Professor Sri Agung, yeah, implement about the Sri system of rice intensification. How to use the waters, limited water, still we can grow the rice. This is the new technology in Bali. We can try in some subak in Bali, but very difficult to change the attitude, the mindset of farmer in Bali, because from long ago, they usual to irrigate the rice field until 10 centimeter from the top of the soil. And then now we introduce the limited water in the rice field. So very difficult to change the mindset, because the wheat will grow if they use the limited water. So the farmer will always every day to release the wheat, something like that. And then usually if they irrigate the water without 3 activities, they can work in the off-farm activities as a labor, yes, as a trader, something like that in the market. Yes. So now the government and our colleague in our Faculty of Agriculture still introducing the Sri technology, how to use a limited water in order the growth of rice. Our research said that if we implement Sri technology, the production is double. Then they use irrigation. But the price of rice is very limited also. The government make a policy, ceiling price and floor price. That is the problem also. If the production is double, but the price is decreased when harvesting time. This is the problem of farmer in Indonesia. Thank you.
I think you asked a very important question. I will very briefly make a couple of points. Point number one is that Bali, like any other state or province, needs to have its water policy. So you need to look at the overall water strategy, not about Subang alone, the city people, the industry, and so on. The second point is that closer to Denpasar and that area, you've got large population, so you need to look at the role of peri-urban agriculture. That's where your vertical and glasshouse intensive technology comes in. Then, as a professor mentioned, you have got a new technology in rice, what we call direct seeded rice, intermittent irrigation, instead of flood irrigation at critical stages. And there are also new varieties of rice coming, which is using much less water than other varieties. So it involves technology, social changes, the overall strategy for the country, particularly Bali, in terms of water policy, water management, and so on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think the fourth audience who want to ask his question.
My name is Nyaman Wijaya. I'm historian. I realize that my English is still poor. That is why please allow me to speaking in Indonesia. My question for the speaker number one. We know that there are many research results in Indonesia today, especially in anthropology, social condition, religion, culture. My question is there its research have function for the nationality strategic? Yeah. My question based on the politics, social economy, culture condition today is not stable yet. Thank you.
As I mentioned that in 2018 budget, 30% of the total budget are dedicated for socio-humanity, art, culture, and education. So we have strong commitment on that. Now the question is whether those who are working in this research priority area submitting proposal or not to my directorate. So we just closed the call for proposal. And not like last year. Last year we received 27,000 research proposal. So everything is done online, so it's okay. This year, for the possible funding 2019, the numbers of research proposal from the research priority area of socio-humanity, art, culture, and education is decreasing. So it's not depend on you. But starting this year, we have also conducting what we call the top-down research grant or assignment research grant, including in the area of socio-humanity, art, culture, and education. So that's another opportunity because until 2017, the only possible way to get the research funding is through nationally competitive program. Now I open the possibility. Now we have conducted what we call the mapping of research in Indonesian university based on 8 different parameters. Number 1 is a university strategic research plan for 5 years, and number 2 is the international publication in Scopus Index Journal. Number 3, publication in international non-Scopus Index. And number 4 is the number of publications in nationally accredited journal. Number 5 is research-based textbook. Number 6 is what we call applied research or appropriate technology. That means any research that can be used to solve the problem in society. Number 7 is intellectual property right, and last but not least is research prototype. So based on these 8 parameters, I can find out who is doing what, who is the best researcher in particular field by using the 8 parameters. So this new system in Indonesia, so basically we are searching for the scientists, not scientists asking us for the funding, but we will look for the scientists and we will provide funding for them based on their academic performances. Thank you.
One of the strategies we use in Australia is when you start a project, it may be technically oriented. We try to have a social or economic scientist included in the project rather than just going and hunting for a social science paper. Because most of the technology, let's take for example GM technology. I'm developing a, let's say, GM canola. I need to know what is the social impact. So it's better for me to bring someone from the social science department as a chief investigator. Or water policy. It's better to bring a lawyer, a faculty from law who has got a lot of knowledge about water policy issues rather than me as a technical person. So that's one way of integrating socio-economic aspect with the science.
Okay, thank you. We still have 3 minutes to go. I would like to invite only one audience now and limit only one question. Is there any question? Okay, Bu Wati, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Wati. I'm from Department of Biology, but now working at Faculty of Marine and Fisheries. So my question would be directed to Professor Oki Karna Rajasa. I would like to know, by increasing the funding next year, is there any proportional budget that you allocated to it, to 8 parameters that you would like to offer to us as a researchers? Thank you.
Basically, top-down or assignment research grant is based on individual or research group, not based on the university. So, since we use online database for all output resulted from the research we have funded, so actually it's quite easy for us to extract the data from our database system. So what I suggest is that please try to be more productive. Since the implementation of output-based research allocation, now we have 2 types of financial system for research grant. Number 1 is what we call the main research grant. That means a particular scientist will be approved to get funding with mandatory output. Then when they or she or he will provide additional output, then basically I will provide additional incentive. I think this is the first in the world. So, in addition, so that means I want to attract more scientists to be more productive. Once you become more productive, then basically your output will be on our database. And then I can easily select for particular assignment research. For example, I need 5 or 15 scientists working on climate change in different theme or topic, then basically I will look into 8 different parameters that we use from your research productivity. So it is very important for that. And yes, for 2019, of course, because I have 10 research priorities area, all will be given quota. But to support the Jokowi President Nawacita program, there are 3 research priorities areas that will be given more research grant. Number 1, food security. Number 2, new and sustainable energy. And 3 is maritime. But this is very multidisciplinary approaches. So we will support those who will form a team consisting different background rather than from one field of study. Also, we prefer to support those who creating or forming a research team come from different research institutions. So, since my budget I manage come from the education channel, so it is only for lecturers. But from this year, the principal as investigator must be Indonesian lecturer, but the team member can come from the non-university institution. Could be from the non-university, the university under other ministry coordination, or with research institution outside of the ministry, and also with the community as well as the private sector. So I think it is a good reformation that will attract to create more synergy among scientists in Indonesia. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, because time is up, I think I have to close this discussion session. And for those who didn't have any chance to ask your question, you can approach our excellent presenters today during our lunch break. And before we have the lunch break, please give our big applause to these 3 presenters. And the time is now, I return to the MC. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the keynote speakers for the insightful presentation. And for the keynote speakers, please kindly remain standing on the stage. And now we would like to invite the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs of Udayana University to present token of appreciation. Thank you very much, Professor Antara, Professor Rai, Ibu Dayu, all the keynote speakers as well as Mr. Moderator. Please kindly be seated.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the first Pleno session. But before you leave the hall, we would like to inform you to the following matters. The first one is to Muslim participant, we provide a prayer room at Singaraja Room, and it is near the lobby of this hotel. The next one is for presenters. We would like to remind you to upload your full paper. There are 8 parallel sessions in 8 different rooms and will be started at 1 p.m. The topic of social science and humanity will be in room 1. That is Denpasar room A1. The next one is food security and agriculture in room 2, Denpasar room A2. The next one is health and medicine will be in room 3, that is Denpasar room A3. Electrical engineering and informatics room 4, that is Denpasar room A4. Material technology room 5, Jembrana room. Civil and architecture room 6 at Gianyar room. Veterinary science and animal husbandry room 7, Klungkung room. The next is sustainable development room 8 at Sunset room. For your information, for parallel session, our invited speakers will be in room 1 until 5.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we also would like to inform you about our tomorrow's agenda. There will be an open forum with North Dakota State University, America, ladies and gentlemen, and the forum will share about the information about studying in the university, research collaboration, as well as the student and staff exchange. So for you, ladies and gentlemen, who is interested in, please come to Sunset Room on the 2nd floor of this hotel at 2 to 4 p.m. tomorrow. And the second one is we also would like to remind you that there will be a door prize session. Okay, it is going to be conducted tomorrow right before the Pleno session at this room. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to come. Let's have fun before the Pleno session. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, the lunch is now served for you at the restaurant. It is located next to the lobby. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your kind attention and also participation in our conference opening as well as our Pleno session. So enjoy your lunch and see you around at the parallel sessions. Om Shanti, 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 Om.